Hello, everyone. This is Mr. Simone for a very brief video just to fill in the gaps on this progressive era politics during our economic history unit. So, just as a quick review, the progressive era was from 1890 to 1920, roughly. It followed the Gilded Age. It was a time where Americans were calling for greater government involvement in the economy, unlike during the Gilded Age of the late 1800s, where there tended to be a more of a general laissez-faire attitude. And remember, the Progressive Era was really sparked by the populist movement during the 1890s, the group of farmers and labor unions that coalesced together into a third political party that was calling for greater involvement. So remember, the Progressive Era would be sparked by muckrakers who were exposing all of the problems in society. These are some of the famous muckrakers. We did this in class, so I'm just going through it quickly. This is some of the regulatory legislation. Remember, some historians actually debate whether or not there was, instead of two different time periods, it's one general time period where we debated the role of government. Teddy Roosevelt is the progressive president who sparks this movement. Not elected, he became president after President McKinley was assassinated, but then Roosevelt was elected in 1904. His program was called the Square Deal. He wanted consumer protection, support for labor, busting of trusts, but not all of them, just the trust that he viewed as bad for the people, and a conservationist. Sometimes historians call it the three C's: conservation, consumer protection, and control of the corporations. Again, I know I'm doing this quickly, but we did do this in class. This is an illustration of him being a trust buster, breaking up the trust he viewed as bad for the people. The anthracite coal miners strike was when he forced unions, the labor union and the coal mining employers to come together to settle their strike so that the people did not go without heat for the winter. It shows that he was on the side of the people during this time, unlike during the Gilded Age when Grover Cleveland ended the Pullman strike and the workers got nothing from it, showing that he was on the side of big business. And again, we got regulatory agencies such as the Food and Drug Administration as a result of the work of Upton Sinclair's The Jungle and Teddy Roosevelt asking Congress to do so. Okay, and then we did this little activity in class with a quote from Roosevelt. So I just wanted to fill in the gaps here quickly. The next president is going to be William Howard Taft. He was elected in 1908. Roosevelt wanted him to be president. Roosevelt actually encouraged the people to vote for him. And he is a president for 4 years. He actually broke up more trusts than Roosevelt did in half the time. So even though Roosevelt's called the trust buster, it's really Taft that deserves the title. But his 4 years were marked by certain actions that really did not make some Roosevelt's fans happy. So he did some things that were not viewed as being progressive, and that really led to a split in the Republican Party. Taft, on a side note, was the heaviest president in history. He's also the only president to ever leave the White House and become a Supreme Court justice. Those of you that know my affinity for the Supreme Court know that that makes me happy. But again, so Taft's 4 years really got Roosevelt a little bit upset. So while Roosevelt is away on, his vacation, he makes the decision that he'd like to run for president again. And he's going to be the first president to try to break that two-term tradition of George Washington. So, I'm sorry, before I can get to the next election, there is going to be a significant rise in popularity of the Socialist Party. Now remember, progressives are more on the liberal side, to the left. Socialists are even further to the left than them. So these are people that thought that the progressives weren't doing enough to solve the problems. And their leader is going to be Eugene V. Debs. Some of you might remember that name. He was the leader of the Pullman strike, if we go all the way back to 1894. So Debs is going to become the face of the Socialist Party. He actually ran for president 5 times, and this is not a joke here. One time he actually ran for president from jail. That was the 1920 election. He's never going to win, but he does make his name heard throughout American history. So now what is this critical 1912 election all about? You have names here that you're all going to know because three of them are president at one time or another. Woodrow Wilson gets the Democratic nomination. Taft does get the Republican nomination. So even though Roosevelt challenged him, even though two-term president, popular beyond belief, Teddy Roosevelt, does not win the nomination. Shows you how the people felt about a third term for a president. So he decides to run on his own ticket. It's called the Progressive Party, but it's also called the Bull Moose Party. And then, yes, here is Debs running as a socialist. So if you look at the results, it looks like a landslide for Wilson. He won 435 electoral college votes. Roosevelt actually won 88 electoral college votes. Taft, the incumbent president, the president at the time, only got 8 votes for Vermont and Utah. So it looks like a landslide. But if you look at the election results closer, if Roosevelt or Taft, one or the other, didn't run, if it was just one Republican candidate, that person most likely would have won the election. I mean, we can never say for certain, but the numbers indicate that if every Republican just voted for either Roosevelt or Taft, that person would have won. By the way, side note, Eugene V. Debs, socialist, did get 901,000 people to vote for him. So this was not a small movement. So these results show that the split in the Republican Party led to the presidency of Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow Wilson was a Democrat, but he did maintain that progressive spirit that Roosevelt and Taft had maintained. So hopefully that makes sense to everybody. Thank you for listening, and we will get to the 1920s in class tomorrow. Take care.